I'm Charlie Bright of Gold Derby, and today I'm speaking with Lauren Domino, the producer of the new documentary American Symphony, as part of our Meet the Experts film documentary panel. First question I wanted to ask you is, I was doing a little bit of research, and is it true that you have a familial connection to Jon Batiste?
I do. That's actually why I signed on to the project. I was doing a lot of work on ancestral connection and legacy. And my uncle, Kid Jordan, was one of Jon Batiste's first music teachers here in New Orleans. I'm from New Orleans, and it just felt really important in helping to tell just a part of Jon's story. It helps the legacy of all of the people who've impacted his life continue to live on. So yeah, it's, New Orleans is a city of a lot of great musical family. So I'm very proud to be from here and to have that sense of connection and deeper meaning, to this project. And one thing that we say about American Symphony is that it's bigger than all of us. And for me, that was a big key state point.
I mean, what did it mean a lot to specifically be profiling someone who also came out of New Orleans and the scene there that I'm sure you're very familiar with and continue to be very familiar with?
It did, but I think for me, what draws me to documentary film is just the power of people's personal stories and how we can connect, and it helps us understand ourselves at a deeper level. So when I look at Jon, not only being from New Orleans, but just the way that he can treat music as a vessel, and really there's power in the way that he performs. And Suleika, in her writing and in her art, and just the way that they move through the world, through the ups and downs of life, to me felt so inspiring. And it's really helped me, and I hope audiences just glean a little bit more about how we see ourselves and how we can also move through the difficult ups and downs of the world and life.
So you are the producer of this movie. This that was directed by Matthew Heineman. I'm curious as to, how did Matthew Heineman become interested in Jon Batiste and thinking that he would make an interesting subject for a documentary film?
Yeah, so I am one of the producers along with Jodan Okun. I want to shout him out. And Matthew wishes that he could be here today. Let me just get that out of the way. But you have me instead. So Matthew came to the project. Jon actually did the score for Matthew's film, The First Wave. And they met just through the process of working on the score for that movie. And then Jon approached Matthew about, he was going to go build this symphony. And initially the idea for the film was they were going to travel around and find different orchestra members to perform in this great reshaping of the symphony through an American lens in 2023. But through the course of, what Matthew always likes to say is, if you start out making the movie that you thought you were making, you're not doing something right. And, my shift on that is, really, if you start anything in life with a plan and it doesn't expand, you're not doing something right. So naturally, the project just expanded and unfolded in a really beautiful, beautiful way. But that was their initial connection.
Was he familiar? Was he? I know he worked with Jon with the scoring. Was he familiar with his music prior to that?
He was. I think that they initially met because Jon was doing a Love Riot during COVID, and he was just drawn to the music and was just like, wow, something really powerful is happening in the streets, and it's being led by this individual. I want to know him more. And then they got the opportunity to become friends and work together.
So, was there any apprehension on the part of Batiste or Suleika, more importantly, when it came to opening their lives up, particularly following the news that they got that her cancer, I believe was leukemia, had returned?
Yes. So a big thing with documentaries that I think everyone on today's panel will say is that they're all rooted in a deep sense of trust. And I think that initially Suleika had some apprehension about, just being portrayed as the sick wife. They're opening themselves up to such a level of vulnerability on screen. So there was a little bit of apprehension and nervousness there. But at the end of the day, they really trust Matt and our team and knew that we do right by them and their story. So just the foundation of trust, I think, carried us through the entire process, even when people get nervous of being really just so vulnerable and so open for an audience. But I think Jon and Suleika also understand in their radical vulnerability that that's what people connect to and need to see, especially from people in the public eye. And it helps, again, it helps us understand ourselves and our lived experiences. So they were really, really game and really generous in their openness.
So the whole film, of course, climaxes with the premiere of the new Symphony being performed at Carnegie Hall. How complex was it to film Batiste's concert at that venue?
So the shoot at Carnegie Hall was extremely complex. We had 13 cameras. It was obviously like a live one night only performance, so we couldn't get anything wrong. And I won't give a full spoiler, but something happens in the concert that was, for us in the control room, like a pretty scary moment.
So that moment was not planned.
Oh no,
what you're talking about, because I was wondering.
If you could see our blood pressure spikes, well, I feel like mine and Jodan's. Matt is used to filming in just really extreme high pressure, high stress situations. So
I talked to him for Retrograde, so yeah. I know.
So he was calm and like, just again, the level of trust of knowing that Jon is a professional. But on our end, in the production side, it was a huge panic because we have 13 cameras in a venue that is not used to having that level of filming. So the initial thought was like, oh my gosh, did we cause this to happen? And then that was cleared, but it was like, okay, wait, what do we do? We're losing sound. A big part of the symphony relies on, this thing that happened and then it wasn't happening. So no, that was not planned, and it was only after in the edit that we could see the magic in it. But when it was happening in real time, it was definitely a peak panic moment.
One of the other crazy things that happens in the midst of the filming of this documentary was the Grammys. I believe it was in 2022, where Jon not only was the nomination leader, but ended up winning, I believe, five. Was it five or six?
I believe it was five,
including the probably one of the biggest surprises, album of the year. Was the whole crew like kind of in shock with that when that ended up happening as much as he was, because it sort of like it just sort of like flew over his head when Lenny Kravitz said his name, kind of.
I think there was a surprise, but also just a knowingness. Like that album is incredible, and so many things were aligned for that to be his moment. Just I think in life, but Matt was there with him, so all of that shooting is just like Matt on his cell phone, and he got to be in that moment. So I want to say like there was surprise, but I think that we all knew, again, this project being bigger, we just trusted that great things were going to happen that night and that this was truly his year.
Were there any types of performances that you saw Jon give that Matt wanted to include in the documentary but wasn't able to for one reason or another?
Yeah, so Matt is a big believer in the power of verite, and with verite filmmaking, you're just shooting nonstop. So we had about 1,500 hours worth of footage. So there's a lot of just really amazing, beautiful moments, performances, moments of connection that just had to end up on the cutting room floor. But it's one of those projects that you're like, whoa, we could have really made 11 different movies with the amount of just extraordinary footage we had, and we had conversations early on of like, whoa, is this a series? Because there's so much good stuff here. But ultimately, in the edit, we just allowed ourselves to sit back and listen and let the story sort of move through us. And we ended up with the film that we have now.
And when it comes to when the first project was first brought to Jon, did he have any sort of apprehensions about how it might frame him in terms of how he works or anything like that?
No, I think that there was an openness. Again, it falls down to that aspect of trust. And Jon and Matt had built a relationship through working on First Wave, and they both trusted each other. And working with artists, they trusted the artistic process of the making of this film, that it was going to find its way. Like, as we all will state on this call, like, the artistic process has lots of like ups and downs, and then things figure out, and you just have to trust the flow of that. And I know Jon trusts that, but ultimately he really trusts Matt.
Well, Lauren, thank you so much for joining us. We wish you all the best, and we look forward to seeing you on our panel in just a little bit.
Yes, thank you so much.